Artist John Bramblitt joins the Disability Unite Festival to help kick off our nationwide banner project. We want disabled people and organizations across the country to create banners and share them on social media with the hashtags Banner Project and Disability Unite. And by next July, we hope to see banners flying on street poles across the country, celebrating our community's diversity and pride. Here's John sitting in his studio with a large blank canvas to his right, getting ready to start a painting for his banner.
And welcome to my studio here in Denton, Texas. I'm so glad to have you here. I can't wait to get started on this painting. It's just I'm excited. Putting the first brush strokes down is just the best part. And I'm equally excited about disability awareness. I think it's so important. And one step in that, I think, can be sharing about yourself, about your own disability. So, for me, I was born with epilepsy, and it developed into severe epilepsy as I grew up. And then while I was in college, I ended up losing my eyesight. And I'll be completely honest, whenever I went blind, I thought everything was over. I couldn't imagine a future. And they couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is the adaptations, the technology, the accommodations, everything that's out there is just incredible. Not to mention people that are out there as well that can be so helpful. You can really do whatever you want. And I believe that to the bottom of my heart. But at the first, I was so angry and I was so depressed. And one reason was because I had art all my life. I think I could draw before I could walk. I just had one of those brains that it just made sense. And I didn't paint then, though, but I always drew. And if it was a bad day, art was a great way to help me with that bad day. If it was a good day, art was a great way to celebrate the good day. So bad day or good, it was always a good day for art. But then whenever I lost my eyesight, it didn't even occur to me that there would be a way to do that again. But then I started learning different ways to use my senses. So like, for instance, orientation and mobility training. So that's white cane training. So if you've ever seen anybody with a visual impairment using a white cane, that's what I was learning when I was in college. And I was learning how to travel from my apartment and to get to the campus. And it took me about a year to learn how to use the white cane to be able to do that independently on my own. But after I did that, I thought, well, good grief. I'm basically using my sense of touch, using the cane, to feel my way across the city to get to the campus. If I could do that, surely I could feel my way around something much smaller, like a canvas, if I just use the same techniques. So I started working on inventing different techniques where I could actually draw and paint by using my sense of touch, by using my hands to do the work that my eyes used to do. And I want to share all that with you. And I'm so excited to get to working on this painting, though. So I'm gonna have to start the painting, but I want to answer any kind of questions and that you might have about that. And but it's going to be a long process. I just can't wait to get started.
So, John, do you have an idea or a theme in mind for your banner painting?
Oh my goodness, do I have an idea for the painting? I certainly do. And so what I want to show, this is ADA, 30 years. It's incredible. And I want this painting to be a celebration of all that's been attained, all the goals that have been met. And lots of joy, lots of happiness in this painting, a very positive sort of painting. For me, color is emotion, so the colors used in this painting are going to have to be bright and happy and joyful. So that's going to be the palette for the painting. Lots of bright reds and oranges and yellows and pinks and things like that. But very, very happy paintings. Now the composition, I want to be able to show like reaching your goals, working to reach your goals and celebration and success. So the way that I think I'm going to do that is by having a series of mountaintops, like summiting a mountain. And towards the bottom of the painting, I want to have a gentleman who's in a wheelchair and his arms are up and he's celebrating. He's so excited. And, the attainment, yes. And then have more mountaintops. And then towards the very back, maybe the last peak, have a person who's using a guide dog. And I want to do that because of my guide dog, Eagle. A little tip of the hat to all the guide dogs and service dogs out there that work so hard for us. So I want to have a person using a guide dog on the last peak that's just sort of a silhouette that you can see back there. And, and the idea is a very happy, joyful, optimistic sort of painting. So yeah, that's what I'm going to work on.
So tell us, John, how are you able to paint if you can't see with your eyes?
And the way that I'm able to paint without vision, it really comes down to a couple of things. And one of them is the modern orientation and mobility training that we have. So that's the sort of techniques that you use with a white cane or a guide dog, to be able to orient yourself, to know where you are and be able to navigate an area. So I use those techniques whenever I'm getting across a canvas. But here's the deal. If you're a sighted painter, you're going to use your eyesight for really only a couple of things. One, to know where you are on the canvas. You make a mark and you can see it. The other is to know where you've been on the canvas, all the other marks that you've made. Well, if you're a visually impaired person and you're trying to orient yourself to something, you're going to do so by using your sense of touch. So what I do is I use paints that I can touch and feel, and they each feel a little bit different. So I can make a mark on a canvas, and instead of using my eyes to know where I am, I do what I always do when I'm in a room. I use my sense of touch, and I can feel the line. I can feel where it is, and I can feel the other lines that I've made around it. And does it take practice? Oh, yes. But you know what? It takes practice when you're sighted too. No, it takes a little practice to learn how to draw and paint, no matter what your vision is. But the wonderful thing about it, though, is that it's completely possible. And one of the reasons for that is really the second reason of all this. It's the way that our brain envision things. Whenever I first lost my eyesight, I didn't know anything about blindness. I guess I just never thought about it. But it's not your eyes that really make the image that you're seeing in your mind. Your eyes are just a sensory organ. They just send back chemicals and electrical responses, but it's your brain that takes that and makes the image. So it's your brain that makes the image, not your eyes. And that's important. And you can see that, though, every night when you go to sleep, when you're dreaming, because in a dream, everything can seem extremely real, can't it? I mean, it can seem like you're really there. And that's because the same part of your brain that makes images while you're awake is the part that makes images while you're asleep. To that part of your brain, it doesn't care if you're awake or asleep. Information is information. So dreams can seem just as real as when you're awake. So for me, even though my eyes don't work, that part of my brain that makes the visual information is still there. It still works. But I feed it by using my sense of touch. So I can touch things and feel things. I can remember things, and I can put all that together, and I can make images so that when I start working on my painting, I can touch and feel where I am by using my sense of touch, and I can make an image in my mind by using my brain. And it's a wonderful thing because art doesn't come from our eyes. Art doesn't come from our hands. Art comes from our minds and our hearts. And I think it just makes art such a beautiful thing.
Now, we'll let John get to work on his painting, but we'll check back later in the show to see how he's doing, so stick around. Welcome back, everybody. Let's see how artist John Bramblitt is doing on his painting to help kick off our #banner project. John, here's a couple of questions for you. How would another blind person be able to share in the banner project? And how would they know what you painted?
It's not hard at all to be able to share this banner project with those of us who have visual impairments. There's a thing called verbal description or audio description, and this can be done by anybody. You just describe to me what you see in words, and that's all you have to do. And you can add that onto your social media posts as well. People with visual impairments, we really appreciate this, and it helps us get cued into the messages that you send out as well. So it's just an awesome thing to do.
John, would you say painting is therapeutic for you as a person with a disability?
Painting is absolutely therapeutic. In fact, that's one of my favorite things about it. It's just brilliant. Whenever I first lost my eyesight, I was completely filled with anger and depression. And so much so, I didn't even realize how angry I was. I was learning Braille, I was learning orientation mobility, I was learning the screen readers and everything that you're supposed to learn when you're visually impaired. And I was still going to school, and I thought, I'm doing everything right, but it wasn't helping, the inside. I still had the depression. I still had the anger. And the way that I got through that was through painting. Whenever you're painting, you're living brushstroke to brushstroke, and you're not worried about anything that happened in the past. You're not worried about the stressors or anything in the future. You're right there in the moment, and that's a very healthy place to be. And plus, you're always creating something new. So there's always something new and different in your life, and it's a positive influence.
Did you study art and learn to draw before you lost your sight?
I didn't start painting until after I lost my eyesight, but I've drawn ever since. I think I could draw before I could walk even. Just in my brain, somehow it just seemed to make sense. And growing up, I took every art lesson I could when it came to drawing. I learned how to do portraits. I learned how to do blueprints. I could do the blueprints for a house, and an exploded view of an engine and all this sorts of stuff. Caricature and cartoons, pretty much if you could draw it, I was into it. Took all these lessons, read every book I could, but I never did paint because I didn't think I would be a good painter until I lost my eyesight. And I wanted to get back into drawing, but I couldn't feel pencils or pens anymore, any of the pen strokes or any of that. So I started getting into paint because I could make lines that were sticky that I could touch and feel. And that's how I got back into learning how to draw again. But I think all of the lessons that I had before whenever I was sighted and I was growing up, being into art that much, that helped me later on in life whenever I was trying to relearn how to draw.
So, John, does that mean you have always been able to paint, or did you learn how to paint after you lost your sight?
I lost my eyesight in 2001, and I started learning how to paint again in 2002. So it was almost exactly a year later. And it took that long for me to be able to learn the orientation and mobility, the orientation sort of techniques for me to be able to start drawing. And that led right into me wanting to be able to paint and be able to deal with the anger and depression that I had.
Would you say your other senses are heightened because you're visually impaired?
Well, one sense that I know that was heightened is my sense of touch. And oh my goodness, when I first learned how to read Braille, I thought it was impossible. Everything felt like the letter A, which is just one little dot, one little bump. But everything I read felt like it was saying, ah, the whole time. And I thought it was impossible. I thought there was something wrong with me where I couldn't tell the difference between the different dots. But over time, though, it seemed like the space between the dots got bigger and bigger. And because I use my sense of touch to paint with, and 8 to 12 hours a day, I'm very obsessed with painting, but I'm constantly feeling the canvas, the paints, making little lines, that it's heightened my sense of touch now where I can practically touch a pair of blue jeans and count the threads. It's gotten a little ridiculous, but it certainly helps when it comes to art. I've been having the best time working on this painting. So let me give it a quick verbal description for anyone with a visual impairment and describe where I'm going to be going with it. So first of all, I use a black paint that's very sticky whenever I draw. So I draw with this black paint that I can touch and feel, and it dries really fast. So anywhere that you see the black lines, I draw with that paint. And the other colors, I mix different mediums in with, so the paint actually feels different. So the blue feels different than the purple, and so on and so forth. And I can go into that more later, but right now, this is what I've done. Towards the bottom of the painting, almost in the middle, off center just a little bit, is a gentleman in a sports wheelchair. And it's the kind of wheelchair that has more of an angled sort of wheels. It's great for going fast and being able to maneuver really well. So I have him in that. And he has his arms outstretched. He's celebrating, he's so happy. He's blocked out a little bit. He's mostly in blacks and whites, a little bit of yellow, and a little bit of pink that I have in there just to be able to get his feature. So that's a technique called blocking out, where you're just putting in basic colors. Behind him is a mountain that's done mostly in blues right now, and that mountain is also blocked out. So it's drawn in blacks. Then I put in some blue where I know I want it to be a little bit lighter. Idea where there might be shadows and things like that. So I'm just trying to understand what this landscape is going to look like. Then behind that is another mountain. Let me see. Up here, and right now it's done in browns, and it's just sort of a flat little area that's going up towards the peak of the blue mountain. Behind that is another mountain that's done in purples, and on that mountain, over to the right-hand side of the painting, there's a small figure. It's probably like about 1/5 size of the gentleman in the wheelchair, but there's a guy with a guide dog, so it's just a silhouette back there. And so this is the basic painting, the basic composition, and what I have to do now is start really adding the color and letting the colors and the emotions come out. So there's going to be all kinds of color going through here. A beautiful sky, the blues in the mountains are just going to go even more, and then, but we'll have to see where it goes. But that's where I am right now.
John's painting is still in a rough form, so let's leave him for a while so he can paint. We'll check back again later in the show. Time to get back to artist John Bramblitt's studio. His painting for the banner project is not quite finished, but it's already getting filled with color. A young man in a racing wheelchair wears a red shirt, his arms stretched high over his head. Behind him are mountains of blue, purple, and orange. John, how can you tell the different colors on your palette when you're painting?
Welcome back to my studio, friends. Telling color, I thought that would be the hardest part of painting when I first started after losing my eyesight, but it actually turns out to be pretty simple. And I have a few ways of going about that. Let me see. So the simplest is I just braille my tubes. So I'm a very lazy brailer though, so I just use as few letters as possible, but let me show you. So I think that's holding up to the camera. I don't know, it's around there somewhere. So I just braille the tubes so I can read the tubes. I know what they are, but the more fun way and probably even the more useful way is that I change the way that the paints feel. So I have different mediums. Now, if you look at paint, what paint is made of, it's sticky stuff that has color. Now, the sticky part of paint is the medium. It's what holds the color. So you can add different mediums to a paint to change the texture of it, the way it feels. And you can make it feel really thick. You can make it feel like putty even. You can make it runny like water or all kinds of different. So I have this one here. It's very, very thick. It makes paint feel almost like toothpaste. So I can mix this in with white, and that white would feel like toothpaste. This one I have right here, it's really oily. So if I mix this with black paint, it would feel like black oil. So I would have a very thick paint and very runny paint, a very oily paint. And if I have both of those on the palette, there's no way I'm going to get those confused. If it's thick and sticky, it's got to be the white paint, So it's a way to keep track of them. It's also a way to mix paint, because if I wanted to take that white that feels like toothpaste and the black that feels like oil and mix a gray right between the two, I just mix the two together until I get a texture that's right between that really thick paint and that oily paint. So it's a way to control color. It takes a little practice, but it's a way of controlling color without actually being able to see the color.
But John, what happens if you make a mistake?
Oh my goodness, what if I make a mistake? I make mistakes all the time in the studio. In fact, believe it or not, I think that might be one of my favorite aspects of art, of painting, is that you get to make mistakes all the time. And as crazy as it may sound, I think I actually learn more from my mistakes than I do from my successes. Because whenever I do something that I didn't intend in a painting, I learn from that, and I learn not how to do something, which is actually kind of great, So over time, you just get better and better at it. But I think mistakes, for mistakes, I think that's what white paint was invented for. You make a mistake, you white it out, and you just begin again. It's just an excuse to paint a little bit more.
You don't seem like a shy guy, John, but would you say you are most comfortable in front of a canvas?
Oh my goodness, I'm definitely most at home in front of an easel. I used to be painfully shy. And whenever I first lost my eyesight, I also felt very alone and isolated. But artwork was my way of reaching out and trying to connect with people. And I used to shake if I was going to have to talk in front of a class or something, give a speech in speech class. But with the artwork though, it's gone to over 120 countries. I've been on stage in front of tens of thousands of people and on TV in front of millions of people. And I don't feel shy at all anymore about that. But the reason is because I'm not talking about me. If I was still talking about me, I would be extremely nervous and shy. But I'm talking about the artwork, and I'm talking about disability awareness. And so it's not about me at all. It's about this community that we have, reaching out and educating people, telling people what it means to have a disability and to live your life to the fullest, really. And so if I was talking about myself, I would still be pretty shy, I think, but an easel calms me down.
So how do you know when a painting is finished?
I can usually tell that a painting is done, that if I start thinking that if I add any more to it, I'm actually going to take away from the piece. But before I start painting, I have an idea in mind of exactly what I want to do. I actually work the painting out, paint stroke by paint stroke in my mind before I ever make a mark on a canvas. And part of that is because of the way that I have to paint, where I have to paint in layers, so I can let one part dry while I work on another part. Because I paint with my hands, I have to use my hands to touch and see what I'm doing. So, I'm very hands-on when it comes to my art. So I come up with a way to be able to paint so that I'm working on one part, then another and another. And so whenever I have all the steps in my mind completed, then I know the painting is, about done. I would love to give you a quick verbal description about this painting, where the way it looks right now, and maybe an idea of where I'm headed with it. Just to refresh, it's a 48-inch tall canvas by 24 inches wide. And the figure down on the bottom, the figure in the wheelchair that I've been working on, I've given him a red shirt with kind of orangey highlights. So the darker part of the shirt's red, and the sort of the more reflective parts are orange right now. And I've given him blue colored pants, but I might change that. I wear blue jeans a lot, so my go-to is usually blue. That's what I start with. And he's on a green meadow, so there's lots of sort of olive greens and light greens and dark greens in there, and mixed in with some yellows to just give it a nice sort of tone. Directly behind that is a field of lemon yellow, titanium white, and golden yellows, and right behind that are some bushes, which sort of the same colors of the grass that he's on. And then right behind that is a blue mountain, which right now it's blacks and different shades of blues, but I'm going to go in there and I'm going to add lots of different colors here in a little bit, just subtle little colors that'll hopefully give more motion and make it pop. Behind that is an orange colored mountain, and it's oranges and reds, but that's a complementary color to the blue, so it's really going to pop when I'm done with it. Behind that is a mountain that's reaching up into the sky, and on that mountain, and that mountain is purple, so I'm doing various shades of purple, and on that mountain is still the figure that's being led by a seeing eye dog. So the next step in all of this is to take all the colors that I've blocked in, the basic colors, and just start refining them, making them a little bit better, adding more highlights and lowlights to them, and adding more color. So just taking what I have and pushing it a little bit further. But, I can't wait. This is my favorite part, actually. This is where it all starts coming together. So I'm going to get started on that.
Okay, we'll let John get back to work, and we'll check back in a little bit to see the finished painting. Stick around for that. Finally, artist John Bramblitt is ready to share his finished banner painting with the whole world. So, John, why don't you tell us in your words what you've created and the message of your painting?
Oh my goodness, what a whirlwind. So much painting in such a short amount of time. I had the best time working on this painting, though. And for me, this is an extremely meaningful painting. And it's so relevant right now, with the ADA being 30 years old. This painting is a symbol to me of optimism, of celebration, of how far that we've come in this country, in the 30 years. And it's about attainment, So we have a figure in the foreground who's in a wheelchair, a sport wheelchair, and he's celebrating. He's got his arms up, all these mountain peaks, and each mountain peak is a different summit. It's a different struggle that we work at and that we overcome. And then on the very top is a person with a seeing eye dog, and they're walking along the ridge there, going towards another peak. And of course that's in there for my guide dog Eagle and Echo, my original guide dog that I still have, bless her heart. So this is a very joyful, happy, optimistic painting for me.
John, I know you are a cultural ambassador for the State Department of the U.S. government. Please tell us about your work and what it means.
Oh my goodness, I can't describe how honored I feel by that. And when the State Department reached out to me and they said that they wanted me to work as a cultural ambassador for the United States, honestly, my knee-jerk reaction was, who, me? Are you sure you have the right person? But it's basically it's them just wanting me to do what I'm already doing, teaching and talking, giving talks. But with the thumbs up from the American government, to send me overseas and to be able to talk about my artwork, and to do that. But I think me being a person with a disability, it makes it that much more meaningful to me, at least, because it means that when I'm overseas and I'm talking, it's not just about the artwork, but I'm also able to spread disability awareness, and there's places in the world that desperately need that, and I feel so honored to be able to do that.
What advice do you have for kids, or in fact for anyone, who has a disability?
What a great question, and I think one of the most important things is to not judge yourself too harshly. Give yourself time, the time that you need. A lot of times when we think about disability, we're focusing on the thing or things that we can't do. You know, One of the things that I love the most about painting, about artwork, is that it's all focused on what you can do. What you can't do doesn't even enter it. I've never met a painter, whether they're sighted, whether they're not sighted, whether they have a disability or don't have a disability. Every painter I've ever met paints in a different way. You find the way that works for you. And I love that. And to me, that's such a symbol for life. You find what works for you, and that might not work for someone else, but you've got to give yourself the time and you have to believe in yourself. And if you do that, I honestly think you will be shocked by what you can accomplish.
John, I've heard that you always ask your mentors and people who inspire you to tell you their secret. So please tell us, what is your secret?
Oh, my secret. Well, I'll tell you, and it's not just my secret. I have a habit whenever I meet somebody that I'd really admire, and I've been able to meet some like Hollywood celebrities. I've been able to meet some musicians that are just incredible, and some athletes that blow me away, and they're amazing. But I ask them the same question, and that is, what's your secret? Invariably, what they tell me is that you have to be okay with failing. You've got to fail. And in fact, if you're not failing, you're probably not trying enough new things in your life. You need to fail. And that is so true. Oh my goodness. You've got to give yourself license to be able to try new things and to be able to fail at those new things, because that's the only way that you'll ever get anything new in your life, that you'll be able to move forward, really. So I think most people are so afraid of getting it wrong, of making a mistake, of looking silly, that we just don't try new things, But if you're okay with it, with having a failure every once in a while, everything opens up so much more. It's incredible. So I fail all the time. Every painting that I do, I fail constantly with it, all the way until the very end. Usually, even at the end, sometimes it's a little squirrely, but even if a painting doesn't work out, I learned something from it, and I'm okay with that. I need to take the risk. So anyway, that's my little secret.
John Bramblitt, thank you so much for your beautiful painting. We will be displaying it throughout the year, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks to everyone that watched me work on this painting, and take part in the banner project. It's just going to be an incredible time. It's going to be so much fun, and I can't wait to hear about what everyone's come up with. But until then, goodbye for now, guys.